Bleventy War! Bleventy War! Behind the scenes of Bleventy War?
Yes, please.
Hey, it's me, Sean. I'm gonna do things a little differently this time. Instead of our normal supercut of bloopers and clips from filming, I'm going to present to you a fairly comprehensive behind-the-scenes look at how we made Bleventy War. I'm gonna do more of a video essay format because, frankly, there's a lot more to go over than usual, so I hope you'll stick around until the end. A quick side note, I've been sitting on this behind-the-scenes video for a while, mostly procrastinating, but ultimately struggling with the tone and focus I wanted to capture. I'm going to approach this with the goal of keeping things as concise as possible, while also sharing what I deem to be important aspects of the making of process. I should say, doing a video essay kind of thing was not at all how I intended to structure the Bleventy War behind the scenes video initially, but in the words of a once great man, better not perfect than not done. That's a theme you're going to see numerous times throughout this video, so remember it. Before I talk about the visual effects and all that juicy stuff, I gotta lay the foundation down for your understanding of how Bleventy War came to be. It was the fall of 2023. Things were going not so great, at least not in real life. At the time, I was working as a compositor in the visual effects industry, and the writer's strike had put me and almost everyone I knew out of work for almost the entire year. Ever since our big push in 2020, Bad People videos have been really difficult to produce, and this has always bothered me. But being on the other side of the country from the rest of the bad people, and now having nothing better to do with my time, I hatched a plan to remedy this travesty. I decided I would continue the Bleventy story from our video Cheater in such a way that was easy to produce without anyone else involved. And this is where all the alternate universe uploads idea came from. For those who didn't watch all the videos, the whole Bleventy saga can be boiled down to Bleventy's descent into madness as he uploads a bunch of unfinished or repurposed Bad People shorts, and then some vignettes of me arguing with Bleventy from his perspective. Of course, later I was able to get some of the other Bad People to film some quick ideas and include those in the alternate universe uploads. Anyway, October rolls around and I decide to move back to the East Coast. Of course, I had the brilliant idea of stopping on the way to meet with all the other Bad People and film a grand finale to the Bleventy saga. And that's pretty much it. I spent October finishing the script and building props with John, and then we all spent November filming. So now you know the basics of how Bleventy War came to be. For the rest of the video, I'm just going to talk about the various challenges we faced when filming and editing each scene. Fair warning, it might get a little technical at times, so if that's not your thing, to you I say,
Yeah, well, that's your problem. Fuck you.
Alright, to make things easier moving forward, I'm going to break up this behind the scenes analysis by scene. Bleventy War consists of 7 scenes ordered chronologically as follows: the intro phone call, the road trip, the parking structure, John's shed, the park, Bleventy's lair, and the finale. Starting with the intro, there's really not much to go over here. This was actually one of the last scenes that we filmed. For me, the best part of filming the intro scene was the opportunity to finally use my dolly a bunch, because I hadn't gotten to very much when we were filming the previous scenes. Kinda went crazy and overdid it though, because I made every single shot a dolly shot. Oops. The only other thing worth mentioning here is the kiss. The kiss is sadly VFX. I cannot in good conscience claim I had Luke wear lipstick to kiss the laptop screen. Even though that would be way funnier, we just didn't have the prep time necessary to pull something even that small off. So yeah, the lipstick stain was comped into the shot after the fact. Wow, onto the road trip scene already! Okay, I think we can finally start digging into the real visual effects of Bleventy War. The thing with real movies is most of the time visual effects shots are visual effects shots because of budgetary reasons. But for me that's not really a problem since I'm funding and doing everything myself. So for us, we have to use visual effects either because we lack resources or we lack the time to shoot things a different way. In other words, we opted to use visual effects out of necessity due to circumstance. Allow me to explain with an example. The Wendy's sequence takes place in Colorado, right? I mean, I can't have an exterior sequence in Colorado without the Rockies in the background and at least some snowfall. So the only way to set that sequence in Colorado was to film at the Wendy's near Bad People HQ on a cloudy day and do a digital set extension. Maybe this is why I lost my job. And voila, cinema. So this is an example of necessity due to circumstance, but moving forward, you'll see plenty of examples of necessity due to time constraints as well. But here's another example of VFX out of necessity due to circumstance. Speaking of driving shots and that hood mount I made for my car, let's really quickly talk about the sequence where Bleventy hacks my phone. For this sequence, I did use a special rig that I built to attach the camera to the hood of my car while I drove it. This is what the rig looked like. And this is the first time I tested the rig to make sure it was safe. And the last thing to mention is, when Bleventy was looking at me through the camera of my phone, I'm not actually driving in that shot. I knew that I'd be overexposing the background so you wouldn't be able to see out the window, so the car is just parked for safety reasons. The last shot I want to talk about for the montage scene is this really cool panning shot. Did you know this one was a VFX shot? Well, it is. But guys, we haven't even gotten to the flashy, cool VFX yet. This is just a handful of some of the invisible effect shots from the driving montage. I'd like to go to the top of... Okay, moving on to the parking structure scene. Like the intro, there's really not much to say about this, other than maybe it's the world's most boring dialogue scene. If I had the time, and also the budget, and also a dedicated camera operator, and a sound team, and hadn't written myself into the scene so I could have been behind the camera focusing on directing, I would have shot this completely differently. But once again, I have to reiterate a core philosophy that I employed when making this movie. Better to complete something imperfectly than to not do it at all. Bleventy War never would have existed if I had not allowed myself to be satisfied with a project that was, and still is in my opinion, mediocre at best. Even though it ended up not being a polished final product, I believe that there was still value in completing it the best that we could with the resources we had. So with all that in mind, let's move on to the next scene, which is... So this was the first scene that we filmed. It was also one of the most difficult, because we jumped into it right away without any rehearsals.
I'm going crazy.
And once again, I'm in the entire scene, which means when it comes to shot choice, we were pretty limited. Static shot, static shot, static shot, static shot. See what I mean? For this scene as well, there's really not much in the way of VFX. I did make all of the graphics on John's laptop screen from scratch. For the bit where we call Noah on the phone, I really did drive to Pittsburgh to get all the footage.
Yeah, right there, that's never been better. Good job.
Is this better?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, cool.
The shot of that house with the Pittsburgh Yellow Bridge going over top is a set extension. You can see here how I walked under the real bridge and filmed the correct-ish angle and comped that plate into the background of the house plate. For the shot where Noah drives the boat away, I had to do a combination of keying and roto to pull a mat of Noah and the boat, because we couldn't actually move the boat in real life. Then I created a clean plate of the background with some more traditional paint techniques, and then a little bit of animation at the end, and whoopity whoopity whoop, Noah slides out of the garage and right into my DMs. Never mind. I should also mention that every time you see a boat in a shot, and I do mean quite literally every single time, I had to do a paint out on the hull. See, cars have VINs, and apparently boats have HINs, an identifying number painted in giant black numbers right in the most obvious spot on the hull. Don't worry though, I realized this only after filming and editing everything. Nothing like surprise roto paint work on over 60 shots to really obliterate your motivation, am I right? The sun is shining. Ah yes, the park scene. Rife with inside jokes and invisible VFX shots, like the very first shot. I realized far too late that John was talking in the establishing shot. There wasn't supposed to be any dialogue before Noah breaks the silence. You know what that means, right? Yep, I had to eliminate the distraction and paint out John's mouth moving. Speaking of paintouts, a random guy came over to us at one point and interrupted a take to ask us personal questions. You can see him in the background of this shot. Had to paint him out because once again, the world conspired against us with weird and annoying distractions.
Guy, what's your bag?
No.
Not ours.
You guys college student?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. What semester?
I'm a senior. Yeah, fall semester.
Fall semester.
I'm a senior and they're both juniors.
Yeah, it's 6.
What's your major?
We're all engineers.
Yep.
Oh, chemistry.
Oh, well, yeah.
Mechanical engineering.
Okay, thanks.
The worst liar.
Alright, ready?
Really good at improv. Yes,
Yeah.
no. No, and.
Okay, but here's something fun. We can now begin discussing the props we made for Bleventy War. At one point in the park scene, we realized Bleventy has been listening to us through our phones, so we have to toss our phones and break them. In order to do this, I needed to make 2 sets of phone props. A set that could be thrown without getting damaged, so we could do multiple takes of us throwing the phones if need be, and a set that we could step on and have the glass screens shatter. For both sets, I made the phone bodies out of craft poster foam. I don't know what it's called, but whatever. I started out by cutting out the back pieces for each phone, then traced out another piece of the same size but cut a hole in it for the screens. Then I glued those layers together. For throwable versions, the screens were made out of clear acrylic. For the breakable glass versions, I made the screens out of sugar glass. Or should I say sugar ass, because they looked like ass. And then the cherry on top is adding sparks with VFX, so that when we step on the phones, it's sort of like it's an actual thing. I don't know. And that's pretty much it for the park scene, which means it's time for us to move on to... This is it. We finally arrived at the meatiest part of the movie, the confrontation at Bleventy's lair. To begin, yes, I really did shoot that time-lapse sunset myself. Yes, I really did shoot that moon with a 300mm lens myself. And no, all of these parking structure and sheets exterior shots were not really shot at night. The first major problem I had to deal with was direct sunlight and therefore really harsh shadows visible in the shot. You can see there was a fair bit of color grading done to make it look a little bit darker and make the lighting look softer. I had to rebuild shadows, I had to rebuild lighting. I even had to fake a rim light on all of us as we walk by that light on the wall there. And now we've finally arrived at the main event, Bleventy. I'd like to begin this section with how we built a real-life Bleventy prop before we talk about the visual effects. When designing Bleventy, I started off, as all great artists do, by drawing a very rough, not even passable sketch on a piece of paper. Once I had a rough idea down on paper, I transferred that sketch to 3D so I could figure out all of the joinery and take accurate measurements for the cut list. So here we are building Bleventy. We started off with a very crude skeleton made from 2x4 scraps. Once the general volume was constructed, we ripped a sheet of plywood down and secured it to the skeleton with screws and glue. It was at this point I realized we'd screwed up. The glue did not hold very well, and the skeleton wasn't tall enough to reach the upper portions of the plywood. Because of this, these nasty gaps appeared when we arrived the next day. Oh well. Nothing a little duct tape can't fix, am I right? A hole was cut for the eye with a jigsaw and some elbow grease, and a plastic bowl was secured into the hole to act as the lens. At this point, Bleventy was ready for primer and paint. While the various layers of primer and paint dried, I worked on the inside of the eye, which consisted of a plastic container and some lids, cut, hot glued together, and spray painted matte black. I used some Velcro to attach the back to the front so I could easily swap batteries in the puck light if needed. And there you have it, a fully realized Bleventy monolith prop. Now, regarding the visual effects, every single shot that has Bleventy in it, I had to do at least 3 separate tasks. First, I had to paint out the hin on the hull of the boat. Second, I had to do a screen replacement for the terminal below Bleventy's eye. And third, I decided to replace Bleventy's practical puck light eye with some animated graphics, the design of which was a callback to the video titled I Don't Get You. I'm gonna skip the John trying to hack Bleventy and getting electrocuted sequence because it's stupid and I hate it, and the visual effects should be painfully obvious. You know, some screen replacements, some lightning, impossible sliding on the ground, you get the idea. Oh wait, actually, the first shot here is funny. Did you catch the visual effects in that shot? Yeah, I'm not actually in this shot because, well, I'm filming it. I had to comp myself into the shot because, you know, I was standing right there in the previous shot. Blah, 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 skipping ahead. Oh, awesome. Here are 2 more Bleventy CG extension shots. The top of Bleventy is, of course, 3D. I'm also doing a bit of work on the plate to darken the area behind the pipes since we had a light up there originally. Oh, this is another comp shot. Again, I'm filming Luke falling backwards here, and for some reason, John was also not in this shot, so I had to add us back in for the sake of continuity. I talked before about how we made the big Bleventy monolith, but once again, due to budget and time constraints, we weren't able to build this opening panel section directly into the monolith. Because it was only ever going to be filmed in close-ups and maybe some medium close-ups, I was able to get away with building this maintenance panel thing and the interior separately out of cardboard. We've now entered the finale sequence. Hopefully this should be obvious by now, but all the falling dust and debris were comped elements. We didn't actually have that stuff on set. In this shot, I had to do a camera solve to make sure my dust elements tracked the handheld camera move. And for the final exterior shot, all of the same day for night modifications were made to the plate as the establishing shots at the beginning. The explosion was a pyro sim and the glass was a physics sim. All of it was CG. For the wide shot, the explosion is just a 2D element comped in with some interactive light. For a single night's worth of work, I'd say it's good enough. I'm gonna very briefly gloss over the denouement, as there's very little to say about it. The screen replacement, the fire, the smoke, those are all comped in, and that's it. There's nothing special that we haven't already gone over in other shots. Congratulations, you've won! You've made it to the very end of the Bleventy War behind the scenes breakdown video. We went over a lot of stuff in this behind the scenes breakdown, but there's still quite a bit I didn't cover. For instance, I didn't even touch on all the work that went into the sound design and sound mix. Hopefully though, you can imagine the amount of work that went into the other aspects of making Bleventy War just based on the information I've presented in this video and on these key stats. There were a little over 100 visual effects shots, and I put in well over 100 hours of work just into the edit and the visual effects alone. And on that note, I'd like to thank you so much for watching to the end. And I'd also like to thank all of the bad people and everyone who helped us make Bleventy War. It was a very long, complicated process, and I definitely couldn't have done it myself, so thank you to everyone involved. And we'll see you in our next video. Whenever that is, of course.